Hey fangirls and boys, this is Natalie and you're watching Whole Lotta Love. Can I just say that this sweater is everything and a bag of chips. It's like this super fuzzy light pink leopard print sweater. I got this at Target for like 25 bucks and it's actually pretty comfortable. It doesn't feel too itchy for having that like super fuzzy material to it. I just think it's so girly and fun. I'm loving this sweater. Anyway, so this video is a first impressions of the Huda Beauty New Nude eyeshadow palette. So I got this palette in the mail today. It is October 31st. It launched on her website 2 days ago. The shipping was absolutely incredible to get here that quickly. So I'm really happy about that. I thought the launch date was gonna be November 1st, but I guess that's just all other stores. So I'm really happy to have it the day before I was expecting to even be able to order it or get it at all. So that's really cool. Anyway, this palette has 18 shades. One shade is a concealer. There's about 4 multi-tonal super chunky metallics in this palette. There's 2 pressed glitters, 1 regular shimmer metallic, and the rest of the eyeshadows are mattes. So you get 0.038 ounces of product per pan in this palette, which is a pretty standard amount of product. Not a ton, but not bad at all. This is what the outer packaging looks like. It's really sleek and beautiful, just white with this like nude, and like you could see the word new is kind of in between. It's the same on the actual palette, like the N-E-W and then nude across. It's very sleek. I think this is the best packaging she's done so far in eyeshadow palette, and she's done some really beautiful packaging with Rose Gold Remastered and the Desert Dust palette. So I'm really loving the packaging, and I'm also really loving all of these like chunky multi-tonal pearl metallic shades in this palette. So when the teaser photos dropped, it was almost like too good to be true. It just seemed so super sparkly. And some of the teaser photos made it look like it was just like super like reflective sparkly, but when you look a little bit closer, there's actually like multi-tonal duochrome like floating pearl kind of things going on in like 4 of the shades. And it's like even more beautiful in person, I would say. And I feel like Huda Beauty has really been super innovative with their metallic textures. They kind of do different formulas in almost all of their palettes. The original Rose Gold palette, not everybody was a super fan of those metallics, but I thought they were really nice. It was like a very chunky, almost cream-like eyeshadow. The only thing I ended up not liking about those was that they did kind of dry out after a while, but technically there is that, you know, 6 months to a year kind of time frame that you're supposed to use it in. So it definitely did that, you know, right around that time frame. So I was a little bit disappointed. I think it's only like 1 or 2 of the shades, not all of the shades, but I just thought that formula was so innovative. You just kind of use your finger to pat it out, and it did have that texture to it, but it was just like so nice and chunky and foiled. I thought that was really cool. Some of the smaller palettes have like just really sparkly, glossy, foiled eyeshadows in them. The new Rose Gold Remastered and Desert Dust had like sheer, like kind of sheer toppery, kind of like much more subtle metallic kind of shades. So I thought that was like a little bit of a different take on it as well. So she's always kind of trying to find new, exciting ways to do metallics. So I can really appreciate and respect that. And I think this palette really just like pushes it to another level in terms of the metallics. Anyway, so in this video, I create a complete look on my eyes using this palette. I also have one of the Demi matte liquid lipsticks in the shade Catwalk Killa, which I also tried for the first time in this video. So if you are interested in seeing how I got this look and seeing my thoughts on the palette and my first impressions, then keep on watching. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I've already done my brows, I have primer on my lids, I've done my foundation, bronzer, blush, highlight, all of that good stuff. And I usually don't do like a full coverage foundation. I am actually using the Huda Beauty Full Filter Foundation because I have a very lovely little friend popping out right underneath my nose, which is quite painful, and I wanted to cover everything up. I'm not used to seeing myself with such full coverage, so I bronzed up a little bit. So it's a little bit of a different look for me. Anyway, I had to film this because I just got in the mail today the new Nude eyeshadow palette by Huda Beauty. So this packaging is absolutely gorgeous. It's like a picture of her with some kind of lace on her eyes and just this holographic word nude across it, and it's like new in between the word nude. You get this little card in there. So this is what the inside looks like. So it is absolutely incredible looking. So I haven't swatched anything. I want to swatch a couple of these shades, especially these pearly multi-tonal metallics. Those formulas seem really, really incredible. So I'm going to swatch a couple of shades here before I get started on my eyes real quick. I want to check out this shade Crave right here. It kind of has like a greeny duochrome within like a champagne-y pinky golds. So it feels really smooth and creamy, really, really foils. So that is the shade Crave. It's very, very beautiful. You can definitely see that multi-tonal reflect in it. I don't know how well it's picking up on camera, but it's definitely, you can definitely see how metallic it is, and it definitely has a multi-tonal color to it. I will also swatch, I'll swatch this shade at the bottom called Charmed. This one is a little bit more bronzy with kind of like a white floating pearl that might shift purple or something like that. Let's see. So that's kind of like a cranberry metallic. I don't see as much shifting color in that, but it's still very heavily foiled, very, very beautiful. And I am going to swatch a couple of the mattes as well. I want to swatch the shade Love Bite, which I think is the darkest matte in the palette. It's kind of like a plummy purple shade. I'm going to go ahead and swatch that. You can see that right there. It definitely seems nice and smooth and pigmented. So that's Love Bite. And I will swatch one more shade. Let's do the shade Play, which is right over here. It's like a lighter peachy matte shade. So that's Play right there. You can definitely see it show up even though it's pretty light. So that is the shade Play right there on the bottom. Definitely shows up. Everything swatches pretty smooth and nicely so far. You do also get two pressed glitters in the palette. The shade Excite over here, and then the shade next to it called Infatuated. So the pressed glitters, you know, they typically, you can kind of pat them over top of whatever you have going on your lid for like a light, very light glitter topper. It's not going to be too opaque, but if you use a glitter glue and really pack it on, you can get full opacity. But just over top, just if you pat it over top, it'll be like a sheer topper, which is, a lot of people don't really realize that about pressed glitters. They think that they expect the full opacity and get a little disappointed because it's not an eyeshadow. It's not an eyeshadow, it's a glitter. So I'll show you actually. So the shade here I have is Infatuated. So you can see it right there. Like if you want that opacity, you're gonna have to use a glitter glue on your lid. But I don't have any glue or anything on my hand. You can kind of see it there. You could definitely see the glitter show up, and it'll show up like that on your eyes, and it'll stick pretty good, but it's just gonna be a sheer topper if you don't use any glitter glue. So that could be, that also does look really pretty. I've done that before with pressed glitters over another eyeshadow. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on my eye look. I have an Obsessive Compulsive Cosmetics small tapered blending brush here, and I'm gonna start with the shade Bear right here, which is just a light pinky cream shade. Definitely a nice shade to have in a palette for someone with a lighter skin tone. It's just good to like set down primer with and start the look off. Makes everything blend smoother. So you can see there's some kick up in the pan. Okay, so the next shade I'm gonna go into for my transition is this shade Lace. It's right underneath Bear. It's like a very light lilac-y shade. And there is definitely kick up. You can see it right there. I'm using that same OCC brush. I'm gonna switch over to a Royal Inline Nickel BOM 45 brush in the Omniel collection. I just wanna blow and blend out what I already have on my transition area above the crease a little bit more. I'll go back into that lace shade and just kind of apply more just so it's a little bit more blended and blown out, not as precise along the crease. It does seem to be sticking a little bit. It's not like super just kind of shearing out and blending out the way I would like necessarily like a transition to shade to, but it definitely looks pretty. Doesn't look really too patchy or anything like that. It's just kind of staying put a little bit more than I would like it to. So I think, I don't know how this is gonna turn out, but I think for my crease color, I wanna mix the shade Spanked over here, which is like a mid-tone, almost cranberry kind of shade, but not quite as deep as a typical cranberry shade, and the shade Tease over here, which is like a cool tones, browny, plummy kind of shade, also like kind of light in tone. Neither one of these are both like mid-tone kind of shades. So I'm gonna put this more in my crease. So I'm gonna switch back over to the Obsessive Compulsive Cosmetics brush also, just to get a little more into my eye socket. Going back into that first color I laid down lace at the edges and just trying to blend that out a little bit more with the Royal Inline Nickel, the bigger brush. The brush is bigger and fluffier. Okay, so that is what I'm working with in my crease. It's not bad, it looks pretty smooth. Again, it's not completely blowing out the way I would like it to, but I mean, it definitely looks pretty. I like the way all those shades are playing together really, really well. And I actually do feel like these shades are kind of unique. They're very like mid-toned and very more like pinky and plummy in color. They're not as warm. I feel like they're a little bit more cool, at least the ones that I've been working with. This palette seems to go like a little more neutral to cool than really, really warm. So that's kind of different, which I appreciate. I'm gonna go into that shade Love Bite, which is the darkest matte in the palette, just with that OCC brush, just to deepen up the outer V, just a tad. I mean, this definitely looks pretty. These shades look really, really pretty. And the blend is pretty good. It's not the absolute best blend I've ever experienced, but it's definitely fine. There's no real issues. Okay, so I am going to do a little bit of a half cut crease, which is kind of like my go-to. I am gonna go into that shade Concealed, which is actually just a cream concealer base kind of shade in the palette, which is really convenient. I feel like I'm always trying to like find my brush and find all the different things I need and a concealer to like work with my eye looks. It's really convenient, one less thing to worry about in the palette. So I'm using an Alamar Cosmetics brush. This is just like a flat concealer brush. So I'm just gonna cut the crease here. Seems to be working pretty decently. It's not like super duper pigmented concealer, but there's some pigment there, which I appreciate because there's enough pigment where you could see pretty clearly where you've cut the crease. Like, it's an ideal texture for this purpose, which is nice. So you can see how my palette is looking now. You could see that the concealer shade, when I'm cutting the crease, I'm getting some of the eyeshadow like when I dip back into that. So it's like a little bit messy looking already, which, you know, I don't really mind my palettes looking too messy. This palette was so beautiful. I'm glad I got a picture of it before dipping into it. But there's a lot of like powderiness, so I am a little bit concerned that some of that powderiness is going to get into the concealer shade. So I'm gonna have to be a little bit careful in using this palette and be aware of that, which isn't really a big deal. Now I'm going to dip into one of these super beautiful multi-tonal pearly metallics. I'm gonna go into the shade Daydream right here. So this is like a cool tone pink. I'm gonna use a Bodyography flat shader brush. This shade is like a cool tone pink with like a pearly green duochrome reflect in it. It's really like cool combo. So that is how my lid looks with that shade Daydream over top the concealer. I think that looks really pretty. It felt like there was like a little bit of fallout coming out on my face as I was packing it on because it is such a chunky glittery metallic. It's a little bit loosely packed, but I don't really see too much like crazy glittery fallout on my face. So I don't think the fallout was really that bad. I think that looks super pretty. It's like a soft metallic. I guess I was expecting something a little more chunky, a little more foiled on the eye, but I do think it looks really beautiful. I definitely do see that greeny duochrome shining through the little bit of pink color, base color. So I do think that that's really, really pretty. I am going to kind of go in the middle of the lid, kind of like overlap a little bit with this shade Charmed. I want to try another one of those chunkier metallics. This one's a little bit deeper in tone. And I don't think this one necessarily has too much of a shift, but it's still really pretty. It's still very metallic. Yeah, you could see that adds just like such a nice dimension, like the lighter shade going into that like slightly deeper shade to the center of the lid. Just gives the look a little more dimension, and it's really, really pretty. So I'm just gonna finish this off with the shade Love Bite. I'm just going to, where the cut crease kind of ends, just blend that out a little bit more. I already kind of did my outer V, but I'm just gonna blend a little more of that deep shade over top just to have that edge nicely blended. So that is the top of my lids done. I think it looks really, really super pretty. It's just like a super pretty plummy pink look with a nice pop on the cut crease. I'm just finishing with my Butter London Double Decker Lashes Mascara on the top lash. So I'm just gonna conceal under my eyes. I have the Huda Beauty the Overachiever Concealer, and mine is in the shade Meringue. I love this cooling tip. It is kind of warm in here, so I'm just gonna put this under my eye. And this concealer gives a good coverage. I feel like it does get very slightly crepey under my eyes after having some wear time on it, but it's not bad. It's not like, it doesn't get super crepey. My real issue is just this fragrance on this, and the foundation is like really, really strong. I don't think it's necessary so much fragrance. And I feel like with the concealer, especially under my eyes get a little sensitive. So I feel like there's this like weird little achy feeling that my eyes get. It's not even like itchy sensitive, it's just like this weird kind of achy feeling. But I've experienced it worse with some other concealers. This one just has like a little bit of that, so I don't want to use this all the time. But the coverage is pretty decent. I do like the cooling tip. And the shade matches really nice. I think the shade range they came up with was really beautiful. I am going to finish my eyes with the shade Kinky right over here. It's like a cranberry metallic. I think this is the one metallic in the palette that doesn't have like that foiled multi-tonal texture to it. It's just like a nice shimmer to metallic kind of shade. So I'm just using a MAC 219 pencil brush. I'm going to dust off a little bit of the excess, and I'm just going to sweep this under my lash line over here. This shade is really pretty. It has that like cranberry reddishness to it. I really like that. I'm just going to blend it a little bit more with my OCC small tapered brush. And I'm going to finish my lashes with mascara. My lower lashes. I am going to finish off with lips. I have the Huda Beauty Demi Matte Cream Liquid Lipstick in the shade Catwalk Killa. So I haven't tried this formula on my lips yet. It seems pretty nice. It kind of almost seems like a lip lacquer that's like really glossy. But I'm just going to line my lips. I have a ColourPop lip liner here in the shade Contempo. I'm just gonna line, I'm not gonna fill in. And I'm gonna go in with that Demi Matte liquid lipstick. So that is the liquid lipstick. I think the shade is really, really beautiful. On the website, it seemed like a little more of like a cool tone greigey purple, but I'm happy it's not. It's a little bit more of like a cool tone muted fuchsia kind of color. I think that that is super, super pretty. And it's like a little bit cooling on the lips, a little bit minty, but also a little bit sweet. So, and it's not as heavily fragranced as some of the, you know, complexion products by Huda. So I really like that. The formula seems pretty nice. It doesn't seem too goopy for something that has a little bit of gloss to it. It has like a nice kind of thinner formula, not like a liquidy formula, but just something that's not too goopy or too heavy on the lips, so I can appreciate that. And the applicator is pretty nice. It really hugs the lips nicely. It's kind of like a doe foot, but it has that like little bit of a divot in it, and I felt like just in terms of hugging the lips, hugging my lips, it seemed to really contour to my lips really nicely. So I'm really excited to use that lipstick a little bit more. Anyway, this is the finished look. I absolutely love how it came out. I think the eyes look super pretty, very feminine. I love that metallic pop on the lid. And the mattes, actually, now that everything's blended out, everything did blend out pretty nicely. It wasn't that difficult to blend. So they are pretty good mattes. Maybe, you know, there's some other mattes that I really do obsess over, like Colored Rain, Kat Von D. Some of those are my super favorites. So this is like just right underneath that, but definitely not bad. I really do love Huda's eyeshadows in general. And I do love the multi-tonal kind of shades in this palette. I definitely think that they live up. The only thing is I did expect them to be a little bit chunkier looking, and I think some people would actually prefer that they do have a little bit of a smoother look on the lid. They don't necessarily have a super chunky look on the lid, so I think it looks really pretty, and I am really, really happy that I purchased this palette, and I can't wait to play with it a little bit more. I think there is a fair amount of versatility here. I think you are gonna get kind of softer, pinker kind of looks with this, much more like feminine type of looks. So not too many like really warm or really like cool tone smoky. Like this palette isn't really gonna do those things too much, but I just love the range of textures in this palette. I love that there's a really nice cutting crease type of concealer. It's just like such a good formula for that in this palette as well. It's super convenient. So I'm definitely really happy with this. I think the packaging is out of this world. Some of the best that she's ever done. So I'm super duper happy, and I would definitely recommend this palette. That completes this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and have a good one. Bye guys.